That's right, Chuck. Police are investigating an early morning homicide that occurred here on the corner of Belvedere and Nada Drive. According to reports, officers responded to a 911 call early Monday morning. When they arrived, police did indeed find a 25-year-old male named Jonathan Moss with a gunshot wound to the chest. Moss was taken to local hospital, but unfortunately was pronounced dead on the scene. No arrests have currently been made, but police are investigating what led to the shooting, and it is believed to be a drug-related shooting. If you know anything regarding this situation, you're asked to call the crime line at 555-3797. For now, in Overall City, Jack Brown, News Channel 4. But wait a second. That's not all there is to the story. I mean, let's stop and think about what actually happened. Someone was shot here and killed early Monday morning. This is the area in which you live in, okay? This is your environment. This is our community. What is going on here? There have been 5 shootings already in a 5-mile radius of this area so far this year. Obviously, something very wrong is happening in this community, and it's our responsibility to find out what is going on. And let's start with Jonathan Moss, whose life was tragically cut short here last week. There has to be some solutions to this problem. Something's happening. Let's find out what's going on.
I've known Jonathan for quite some time now. We've been good friends since high school. Good guy. I know he's been working at FedEx.
I was Jonathan's boss at FedEx for 2 years. He was a great guy. He always showed up on time. He was always in a good mood. So he hurt his back like 3 months ago, and it was pretty bad. He couldn't even stand. He couldn't move. He couldn't walk or nothing.
All the incoming and outgoing packages and whatnot, and he was in great pain.
But he was that type of guy. He always wanted to, put his best foot forward.
It was a lot of pain when he was, bending over and bending, which is a warehouse job. These are, mobilities that you will have to engage in on a day-to-day.
I talked to Moss's family off camera. They said he developed a pinched nerve caused by 2 herniated discs in his lower spine. The injury was sustained at FedEx, and Moss did file a workers' compensation claim with the company, but he was denied coverage because he did not immediately report the injury within 48 hours. Moss then saw a local physician who prescribed him Demerol, a highly addictive pain reliever, and though Demerol did help initially, Moss was only prescribed a 30-day supply of the drug. His physician recommended that he avoid heavy lifting for at least 6 weeks until the pain subsided. However, per company policy, Moss had only 16 days before he had to return to work, or risk losing his job and his much-needed medical insurance. So caught between a rock and a hard place, Moss could either return to work or find another job.
I wanted to tell him because corporate was putting pressure on me that if he didn't come back to work, he was actually going to lose his benefits.
Fortunately, that's the way the system works. So if you're not working, you don't get any insurance. So I'm sure I know he went back ahead of schedule, way ahead of schedule, and it wasn't good.
Moss returned to work, and the severe pain persisted. According to Moss's aunt, no longer having Demerol available to him, Moss turned to the illegal substance of fentanyl to relieve his pain.
It was so amazing. Like, he came back to work, and I had to see him. The last time I saw him, he was just doing so bad. But when he came back to work, he was just he was in the zone, man. I mean, he was over here. Like, I told him to take a break. He didn't even want to take a break. But he got work done.
Moss was now stuck in an endless cycle of addiction, with nowhere to turn. Eventually, this cycle would claim his life. But the lesson to be learned here is that Moss was not just some reckless societal deviant. He was just a young man trying to make the best life for himself and his family. And Moss is not alone. His story is not an uncommon story within our community.
Opioid addiction is a complete epidemic in this area. I work for the Rehabilitation Center, and it's a huge problem right now.
But for him to engage in illegal activity voluntarily, I don't see that. That's not Jonathan at all. That's out of his character.
So what can be done about this problem? Currently, we stigmatize and incarcerate those susceptible to addiction. So this ideology helps no one, and it keeps our communities vulnerable to continued violence. And it further perpetuates a growing problem. So just across the Atlantic, the country of Portugal faced an epidemic of heroin addiction. The solution to their problem came in 2001 with the decriminalization of drug use. Now, instead of incarcerating addicts and stigmatizing them, throwing away the key, they're monitored by physicians in hospitals and rehabilitation centers. And research shows that this model of Portuguese drug rehabilitation is working. Portugal went from having one of the highest rates of drug use in Europe to one of the lowest. Overdose deaths decreased by nearly 80%, and the prevalence of drug use-related HIV went from 56% to 6%.
I think it would be very beneficial for this community to have a rehabilitation center where people could be monitored with their drug use. It's been so much use of illegal drugs within this area, and I think if it was monitored and people weren't hiding it or ashamed about it, then rehabilitation staff can help.
For more information about this story, please visit the News Channel 4 website to see what you can do to help end drug violence.